We are nearing the end of the series, Giving Birth to Your Greatness. And in this series, we've been exploring exactly how it is we ensure that our minds and our hearts, the way we think and the way we feel, are aligned with the process by which God created good. Are you with me? When we look at the Genesis story in chapter 1 and we see that God is active on a particular day, when we see the life-giving one at work, one of the things that we see at the end of each day of creation is that God looks back on what has been created and God determines that it was good. And so if it's good enough for God, it's good enough for me. And so I just want to just remind you that this series, this process is about bringing us back to the very practical steps and the very practical techniques that each of us have available to us, and that when we use them, we can unlock the greatness that has been placed in our souls. Are you all right with that? See, the thing about having a key is that you still have to use it the right way. If you turn the key backwards, you can have the right key and the right lock and still not get the access. So we want to make sure that we use what we have the right way. Is that all right? As I've said to you, generally speaking, say generally speaking, one of the primary things that interrupts the ability for each of us to live out of our greatness is the belief that we are not enough. There is just some conditioning in life that if we begin to interpret and take those experiences personally, if we begin to see ourselves and define ourselves through the stuff we've been through, we can begin to consider ourselves as less than we are. And so the idea or the notion that I am not worthy, or I am not enough, or I'm not smart enough, or pretty enough, or talented enough, or black enough, or white enough, or tall enough, or educated enough, all of those ideas are, or not all of those ideas, but all of those thoughts, all of those beliefs are beliefs that have been accepted, and they have nothing to do with the divine design for your life. And so we want to just be able to get out of the sense or the belief that we are something that we are not, and we want to walk in the greatness that we are. Are you with me? And so as we've been looking at it, we've just been looking at what we can do to walk in our greatness. And if you find yourself having been someone who has taken or accepted the belief that you are not enough, now is the time to put the guilt around that down. Because for most of us, the beliefs that we hold now didn't necessarily begin with where we are now. For most of us, the belief that we are not enough or somehow unworthy didn't just start yesterday, it started early on. And you've heard me say before, if I was sitting on an airplane and I saw the door to the cockpit open, and out of the door from the cockpit walked an 8-year-old, I would be petrified. Because I don't want to fly on a plane where an 8-year-old is about to pilot it. But for many people, the wounded 8-year-old is the one that's piloting their souls. And so we're trying to figure out why we can't get it together, and it's because we're stuck in the sense of who we were then, and who we were then still comes with us now. Are you with me? So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to release and overcome the feeling of being inadequate. We want to release and overcome the feeling of being unloved. We want to release and overcome the feeling of being unworthy. We want to release and overcome the disappointment that we've experienced. And let me just give you the secret right up front. The only person who can help you do that is you. Are you with me? Nobody else can do it for you. So when we look at the Genesis story, what we see is a creative process. Somebody say creative process. And as we walk through the process, so far we've gone through 3 days of the creative process. The first day of the creative process was what? Somebody better tell me something. Either I'm not teaching good, or you all not taking good notes, or our memory is off, or something. But the first step in the creative process is let there be light. Well, why didn't you just say that the first time? No, you didn't say it like that. Those of you who did say it whispered it because you didn't want to be wrong. I'm standing right here. I didn't hear you. So the first step in the creative process is let there be. Yeah, come on, talk to me. You showed up today. You pushed through the snow to be here. You might as well participate. Are you with me? And so when we look at this first step, this step for us to let there be light, what we are saying is, or what we said in our first lesson, that when we look at this idea of letting there be light, one of the first things that we have to do is we have to know where we are. Say, know where you are. We looked at the creative story from the standpoint of Adam and Eve, and we looked at an experience that Adam and Eve were having, and in that experience, we saw God come to Adam, and God said to Adam, Adam, where are you? It wasn't because God didn't know, it was because Adam had lost touch with himself. So when you have any sense of separation from God, it's not because God has left you, it's only because you've lost touch with yourself. Are you with me? The next thing that we said was a part of the let there be light process is for us to be able to manage the darkness without fear. I love the song that the choir just sang, because we are always safe. We are always in the provision of the Father. And so we can manage the darkness and not be overly concerned about the things that we're unaware of, because we walk by faith and not by. Last step in the first day of the creative process, the let there be light, we determined and we challenged ourselves to let our light shine. See, here is what I love about a light. It doesn't talk, it just shines. So you don't have to tell me how much you love me. Just shine. You don't have to tell me how prosperous you are. Just shine. You don't have to tell me how much peace you have in your life. Just shine. You don't have to tell me how much you like people. Just shine. See, the light doesn't talk, it just shines. The second step in the creative process was the step to let there be faith. Yeah. Let there be faith. I heard some of y'all whisper it again. And we said during Burning Bowl that there were 3 pieces in the process to let there be faith. We said that there was hope, work, and then possess, but we also said that before we could possess, we had to release. And I hope for you that those things that you decided to release during the Burning Bowl experience, you have not gone back to pick up. And then on last week, we said that the next step was to let there be imagination. And we said we use our imagination to materialize our potential, to begin at the end and to get out of our comfort zones. Is that right? And so today we are at the 4th step in the creative process. And so the 2 great lights that we're looking at today is the light of understanding and the light of will. Say understanding and will. When we again read the scripture through metaphysical eyes, we again recognize that the characters, the events, the people, and the places all represent states and stages of consciousness that are happening with us. What we are reading demonstrates or indicates or symbolizes some activity that's happening in you and I. Are you with me? And when we use these same insights, it's not just a period or an happening in history, it's an indication of how we can begin to meticulously transform our life, world, and affairs. So when we say this 4th step in the process of creative process is to let there be understanding and will, what we're saying is that understanding and will are tools for us to transform our lives. Understanding put this in your notes, is that in mankind which comprehends. Understanding is that in mankind which comprehends. It knows and comprehends. It knows how to accomplish. Understanding is that in mankind which comprehends. We know the famous quote from Emmett Fox, who says, there is no such thing as undemonstrated understanding. Put in layman terms, whatever you understand has to show up in your life. See, you never have to convince anybody that you understand the thing, because the mere understanding of it must manifest the thing. Are you with me? So when you understand a thing, that thing must show up. If it's not showing up, there is not a sufficient amount of understanding to get back of the substance to pushing it out of your life. So there are two ways to get understanding. Now, this is good. The first way to get understanding is to follow the guidance of the Spirit of God within. The first way to get understanding is to follow the guidance of the Spirit of God within. Now, when we follow the guidance of God, we learn to listen to the whispering of the still small voice, and that whispering guides and directs us in how we should go. There is a song that we used to sing that reminds me of what it's like to follow the guidance of Spirit within. And I'm gonna try and sing it. Don't trip on me a little bit. But it goes something like this. I don't know the key. I don't think I can get the key. But it goes something like this. All right. All right. I got to close my eyes. I'm nervous, getting nervous. If Jesus goes with me, I'll go. Yeah, I'll go anywhere. I'll go anywhere. That's the song that I think of when I think of what the guidance of Spirit is like. See, there is an assurance when I listen to the whispering of the still small voice, and it will go with me wherever it directs me to go. Sometimes we're finding ourselves feeling alone, and it's because we are moving without the guidance and direction and support of Spirit. So then we step out and we say, God, where you at? And God is like, who told you to go there? Are you with me? And so what we want to be able to do in order to get understanding, say understanding, what we want to be able to do is learn to listen to the whispering of the still small voice. You have to learn, say learn. See, you have to learn to catch it. If there is too much noise happening around you, you'll miss it. So you have to learn to quiet your thoughts. You have to learn to quiet your emotions so that you can catch it and learn to listen. Are you with me? So if you want to get understanding, the best way to do it is to follow the guidance of Spirit. Now, there is another way to get understanding. The other way to get understanding is to just learn by hard experience. So it's like not being sure if the fire is hot and saying to yourself, let me test to see if the fire is hot. And you take your hand and you put it in the fire, and you learn that the fire. Now, this mode of getting understanding also has a soundtrack to it. The soundtrack for getting understanding this way is a Little Annie, but also Jay-Z. It's a hard knocks life for us. It's a hard knocks life for us. Whenever you decide to just go and learn the hard way, you're going to have some hard knocks. But at least when the rubber meets the road, you'll know you're in God. But when you just decide to go on your own experience and you're wondering where it is or why you don't feel it, it's because it's a hard knocks life for us. Are you with me? So that's how we get understanding. The two ways that we get understanding is by following the guidance of Spirit, or to go blindly ahead and learn by hard experience. But either way, we're learning. Oh my goodness. And the thing about learning is we tend to produce what we've learned. We tend to repeat what we've learned. We tend to replicate what we've learned. So when you learn it, you said to yourself, it's worth knowing. And if it's worth knowing, it's worth doing. See, so then there is no understanding without knowledge. And so the knowledge of how I do it becomes the pattern by which I do it. And so if you want things to be easier, if I want it to be easier, who wants an easier life? Then learn to listen to the whispering of the still small voice and follow where it leads you. Follow its guidance rather than testing to see if it's hot. Because listen, the first couple times that they show you they can't be trusted, it's hot. The first time they show you they have no character, it's hot. The first time you're with them and you all talk about her together, when you're not around, the two of them are talking about you. It's hot. So when I learn to listen to the whispering of the still small voice, when I get that understanding, what it also does is it points me back to that which is within me. Are you with me? Why is it important to understand and be crystal clear about what's in you? I'm glad you asked. Because at some point, we began to encounter the opinions of others, and those opinions begin to influence how we see ourselves. So what I want you to know and what I want you to understand is that the I that you originated from is not the material byproduct of your parents' joyful bliss. The I that you materialize out of is the I am of God when God placed the spirit and the seed of the divine in your soul. You are not simply the culmination of what your parents did. You are the culmination of divine life calling itself forward. I know we've been taught that that's how we got here, but that's not how you got here. In the beginning, God knew that you would be here well before your mama even knew your daddy. I want to take you back to your origin, because if you can get back to the origin, if you can get back to the principle, you can connect back to your power. You are not limited by your heritage, by your lineage, by the block you grew up on, the school you went to. Those are not the limitations that can keep you from going where it is you're supposed to get to. Those are only mile markers along the way that tell you where you've been. They don't tell you where you're going. But I have to be able to connect back to the truth of who I am and whose I am. I am not your opinion of me. You ready for this? I'm not even my opinion of me. I am life longing for itself. Are you with me? And so then when we're talking about giving birth to our greatness, we're not talking about giving birth to some aspect of our personality. No. We're talking about letting the divine have its way, and so that it can show up in our life, world, and affairs. See, the light of God that you are just shines. Are you with me? So what I want to ask you this morning is, when it comes to the sense of self that you've been holding, are you a host for God, or are you a hostage to your history? Are you a host for God? Are you a host for the divine? Are you a host for the Christ presence? Are you a host for the Christ potential? Or are you a hostage to your history? Are you all the things that you've been through and all the things that they said about you and all the things that turn you upside down? Are you those things, or are you this? Because if you are this, then this is inconsequential. But if you are this, oh my goodness, then the manifestation of this is impacted. Let me show you what I mean. Let me show you what I mean. If I think that I am the limitation of my experiences, then the consciousness that I hold of myself impacts my self-respect. And when I hold a consciousness of myself that impacts my self-respect, the lack of self-respect is nobody else's responsibility to give me respect. It's called self-respect. But when I do not hold an adequate awareness of myself, or when I have no self-respect, the self-respect that I don't have impacts who I am as a thought thinker. So then, oh my goodness, not even my prayer will overcome my sense or my lack of self-respect, because I am not two things, I am just one thing, and the dominant thing can only manifest through the consciousness that is. Are you with me? So whenever I hold a disregard or an ill repute for myself, I am indicating to the omniscient one that I don't trust you. Oh my God. I just gave it to you right there. Whenever I don't respect myself, I am saying to the author and divine designer of me that I don't trust how you made me. And so a lack of self-respect or listening to the opinions of others is not simply a default in the soul. It's an impact upon how the spirit and the divine design of God is wanting to express through you. And believe it or not, you are so powerful that you can put a block in the divine flow of your good. Because while you're not the opinions of yourself, and while you're not the opinions of others, you are one with the divine. And when you disregard or disrespect the divine can't help but respond to how you see it. This is why when God creates, God says it's all good. Whatever it looks like, you want to call it what you want it to be. I was on a call not long ago, and the call got a little heated. It was, it was fiery. It was a good call. Got a little fiery, got a little heated. And sometimes in the midst of passion, people will express themselves expressively. Are you with me? And while we were on this call, there were some things that were said that, they had a little bite to them. They had a little sting to them. And after the call, someone said to me, like I didn't like how people were talking to you. Like it seemed like there was a lot of disrespect on that phone. And I said to the person who said to me, I said, I don't put my respect in the opinions of other people. I carry my respect with me. And so however you speak is a reflection of your consciousness. It's not a reflection of mine. I get to choose what respect is for me. And because I respect me, I'm going to respect you. And I'm not worried about how you see it, because I don't live out of your consciousness. I live out of mine. And so I determine my self-worth. I determine my self-respect. And the way you speak to me has nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with you. Because I understand that there is just one. They're not two. There's just one. And the one that is made is great and it expresses good. But it doesn't take a lot to forget. And when we forget, we suffer. And so I just want to bring you back to this realization, to the responsibility that you have to be a respecter of yourself. Don't put your sense of self in the opinions of other people, however well-intending they are. Whether they hold you in high regard or low regard, don't put your sense of self in other folks' opinion. I like the saying, it's like cologne. It's all right if you spray a little on, but you're not supposed to drink it. So it's all right if you accept a little praise as a part of what you've been demonstrating when you let your light shine. But don't accept that as a manifestation of who you are, because it's not. It's just the opinion of someone in that moment. Are you with me? So we want to be able to make sure that we hold ourselves in the right regard, and that we recognize that self-respect is the natural state for us. It's not attached to the opinions of anyone else. I love we live in nature, and I just love seeing nature manifest itself. There's a raccoon who used to come and visit our trash can. Right? And see, the raccoon has no limited sense of self about what he can be entitled to. And so even if I take like bungee cords, thank you. Even not if I take, when I took bungee cords to tie my trash can down, because the raccoon's sense of self-worth is not tied or attached to my bungee cord, he just ate through the trash can because what was in there he was entitled to. Are you with me? See, he's not limited by the barrier that's in the way. The thinking of the raccoon is, if there is no way, I'll make one. You can learn a lot from a raccoon. Here's some practices for how you can nurture your self-respect. First, extend more respect to others and to all of life. Extend more respect to others and to all of life. Listen, don't just celebrate the people that you think you can gain something from. Some people are only nice to the people they think they can benefit from. I was in a meeting not long ago, and there were a couple church members right here, and the members shared that until they became a part of a certain group, certain people wouldn't speak to them. They said they were amazed. They said they were amazed that the moment after they got some sort of title or some sort of recognition, that people automatically started speaking to them. What is that? Right? If I'm good enough to speak to before I have a title, no. If I'm good enough to speak to after I have a title, I must be good enough to speak to before I have a title, because the essence of who I am didn't change. Right? So make sure that you appreciate life and appreciate people, especially when you understand that they are not separate from you. They are only a reflection of you. And any judgment that you attach to who they are not is not an indication of them. It's only an indication of the consciousness you hold. Are you with me? I want to give you another practice so that you can nurture self-respect. The second thing is make amends with all of your adversaries. Yeah, I ain't like that one. I get so much joy out of being mad. No, make amends with your adversaries. But here, you don't even have to call them. You don't even have to call them. Try this. From where you are to where they are, just send them thoughts of love and respect. From where you are to where they are, just begin to appreciate them. If you had some kind of relationship with them, I imagine that at some point there was some health and joy and some smiles and some laughs in that relationship. Go back to those moments and send those feelings to those people. Why? Because what you hold on to when it comes to your adversary holds on to you. And it's hard to move in your greatness when you're burdened by stuff you're carrying. So it's time to let that stuff go, because it does not feed you. It does not feed your future. It just keeps you attached to the hurt of the past. Are you with me? So make amends with your adversaries. Send them love, and watch this. Send them love as you are radiating that love to them. Imagine them doing the same thing to you. Imagine them sending it back your way. So yes, the divorce was hotly contested. I want to help you today. There's a lot of pain attached to it still. Just the word divorce made you feel some kind of way. That's what you want to heal right there. In that moment, that spot right there, what you feel right there, send love to that. Send peace to that. Send joy to that. Why? Because you don't need that in order to respect yourself. Are you with me? And when you understand that God is all, let's keep moving. The second great light is the will. Second great light is the will. Will is the executive faculty of the mind, and what we decree in the will comes to pass. I like the scripture in Job. It says, you will decree a thing and that thing will be established to you. But here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. Put this in your notes. Your will can only execute what you understand. So if you have not the understanding for it, it doesn't matter how powerful your will is, your will can't execute what you don't understand. Let me say it to you this way. You can only produce out of you what's in you. As a black man, I can't make a Chinese baby. I had 2 kids. Neither one of them look Chinese. Why? Because I can only produce out of me what's in me. And I only manifest the understanding that is within me. So if you intend to manifest it, to use your will to manifest it, you have to understand it. Are you with me? So will is the executive faculty of the mind. And so if you intend to experience your greatness, if you intend to let your light shine, if you intend to walk by faith and not by sight, you got to be willing to direct your will so that it works for you and not against you. Now, when it comes to will, all of us have the nature of the will to work in one of 3 ways. Will works in one of 3 ways. It can advance us. So think of it like a car. Think of it like a car. When you think about the will, think of it like a car. If you have a car, you can put it in drive, and if you put it in drive, you do what? You go forward. That's right. So your will, when you direct it to move you forward, it can take you forward. But a car can also be put in reverse, and when you put it in reverse, it does what? It takes you backward. So the power of your will might be one of the things that is keeping you stuck in the activity of your past. Are you with me? You can also put your car in neutral, and when you put your car in neutral, it does what? It'll stay still, it'll keep you stuck. So the very power that ought to be a promoting power for you, you might be using it, you might be directing it, I don't know, you'd have to determine this for yourself, but you might be using it to drive you backwards or to keep you still, which is, by most accounts, a misuse of your power. Are you with me? So you have the same power, you have the same amount of power, willpower available to you, whether you go forward, go backward, or stay the same. Now, what drives most people is either inspiration or desperation. Where are you? What's driving your willpower? Is it inspiration or is it desperation? Is it the pull of what's possible when God shows it to you, or is it this sense that I got to get out of this because this just ain't working? What drives most people is either inspiration or desperation. You got to figure out which one, because your willpower is ready to get to work. I'm going to close on this, because I love blind Bartimaeus as an example of willpower. If you can remember when blind Bartimaeus was sitting by the side of the road and he heard Jesus was coming through. And as he was preparing to reach out to Jesus, there were people who were around him. Say, there were people who were around him. There were people who were around him who were suggesting to him that he should just fall into the background and not try to get what he needed. You can't listen to people who are trying to keep you from getting what you need when they're not going through what you're going through. You got to stop taking advice from people who haven't been where you're going. You got to stop listening to people. Stop taking relationship advice from people who don't have healthy relationships. Stop taking financial advice from people who ain't got no money. Stop taking advice from people who don't know what the heck they're talking about. Judge, who we listening to? So Bartimaeus is by the side of the road, and he hears Jesus is coming through, and all he wants is a breakthrough. All he wants is an opportunity to start over. And people who don't have his problems are telling him, you don't deserve it, be quiet, just stay put, just stay out of the way. And I love his willpower. Because as they're telling him to be quiet, he screams even louder. It's like, Jesus, they tell me you're coming through. Hush, the teacher is coming through. Jesus, I need some help from you. Will you be quiet? He's too busy. He don't have time for you. Jesus, come see about your boy. Listen, didn't we tell you? You don't have any place up here with us. Jesus, I need some help from you. So you got to know how to call forward your willpower and not let the voices around you silence you and keep you from getting your good. I don't care who tells you you don't deserve it. I don't care who tells you you're unworthy. I don't care who tells you you're unqualified. If I were you, I would tap into my power and I would scream at the top of my lungs, bring me my good. And so you got to work your willpower. You got to use the steps. And sometimes, the blessing comes wrapped in sandpaper. And so you just got to be willing to be uneasy as you unopen it. But if you will take your time and work these gifts and work these powers and work these faculties, what you'll find is that the creative process will absolutely work for you as you manifest and give birth to your greatness. God bless you.